Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 100th episode of B-Road Ballers, by far the longest single review series that we've done so far on the channel, and it will take quite some time for any other series to even come close. Now, this particular pick is slightly different visually, as you can see, and basically this is to give you guys the option and to decide what you want from these videos, because as you can see, the quality of the playback, the frame rate, the audio even, is much crisper, much clearer, and works better. But the payoff, which is what I personally hate, is the huge black bars around the screen, because of the fact that the aspect ratio of PlayStation 1 games is different to the aspect ratio of YouTube. So really it's down to you guys, and the question is, would you rather have this improved quality but with the black bars, or would you rather have it fill the screen but with the more jumpy playback? Because unfortunately, with my current setup, it seems very difficult to have the best of both worlds. So, as I said, I'd love to hear your feedback and your opinion on that. But for this particular episode, this 100th pick, we're featuring another car from Gran Turismo's past, from Gran Turismo 2 once again, and this is a car which I have no doubt, were it to be brought back, it would be not only a popular car, but also a very useful one. If this vehicle were on, for instance, GT5 and GT6, it would definitely be one of those go-to PP-specific vehicles. It's just that kind of car. Now, the car is, of course, the Peugeot 306, in particular the S16. I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the UK, these are very popular hot hatches. And even for me personally, I do really like the 306 S16. It's a great all-rounder. Visually, I personally would say that it looks good, but at the same time kind of understated. And of course, in the rallying world, it's a pretty well-known car as well. Now, we're going to be featuring both the normal S16 form and the race-modified version, which is the full-on rally car, in this video. And there's some interesting differences between the two. Not necessarily a huge difference, but a difference nonetheless. So first of all, in road form, what can you expect? Well, the price is reasonable for a hot hatch. It's a 31,000 credit machine, so it's not ridiculously expensive, but it's certainly far from being the cheapest. The engine is a naturally aspirated 2-litre unit. It's front engine, of course, front wheel drive as well, and that naturally aspirated engine is very impressive. From a tuning point of view, you get it up to 309 horsepower even without a turbo or a supercharger. That's very impressive. 226 foot-pounds of torque is okay, certainly not bad, but it's really that power figure which is the more impressive spec about this car. Now, the weight is pretty good, even in road-going form. 1,067 kilos is impressive. It's not an overly small car. It's probably small compared to something like an American car, but for hatchbacks, it's pretty good. It's a decent size. Not as big as something like a Focus, certainly not a modern one, but bigger than, say, a Ford Ka or a Fiesta, or even other Peugeots like the 205 or the 106, kind of in between the two extremes. And as far as performance goes, it's pretty good. But I will say about this particular car that it's much better in a straight line, at least without tweaking and tuning, than it is around corners. Most of the hatches that we've featured from Gran Turismo 2 predominantly have really great handling, and they're just okay in a straight line, which is what you'd expect. This one's kind of the opposite. It's really good in a straight line as far as hatchbacks go. In fact, it's one of the only vehicles that can even bring a battle to the Nissan Pulsar GT-IR, but around corners it does require a little bit more fine-tuning, especially on stuff like the suspension and the diff, to get it to be loose enough to take tight corners. It does have quite a lot of understeer, even with everything in racing form, and that's interesting. Now, off-road, it's great, and obviously that aspect of it brings us to its alternate form. So in this alternate form, the race modified version costs around 80,000 credits to convert it to the rally car. The power and torque stay the same, but the weight is slightly dropped. Not by a huge amount, it's dropped from 1,067 kilos to 1,034, but that does increase the horsepower per tonne from 290 to just under 300, 299. to be exact. But what kind of difference does it make in reality, in terms of how quick it is in a straight line, through the corners, and of course lap times? Well, as you can see from these replays, it is definitely quicker when you compare it to the normal version, even with all of its upgrade parts on the same track. It's around 2 or 3 seconds quicker, which is a pretty significant difference when the track itself takes not much more than a minute anyway, and it's definitely a quicker car. The cornering is instantly improved with the race conversion. The handling becomes much more loose, much more controlled, and much more focused. In normal road going form, as I said, it's a little bit heavy, but it's also a little bit dull. It's not boring, but the handling feels a little bit, well, as I said, duller than what you typically expect from a hot hatch. It does the job, but it doesn't have much excitement to it. This version ups the ante in that regard. Now obviously off-road it's going to be far better. It has the wider track, which makes a difference in that regard around corners, on and off-road, and the main difference of course is the visuals. You instantly notice the change, and personally I think it looks great in both normal and race modify forms. The main disadvantage, as with any race modify on any of the cars in the game, is really the price. It's a very expensive upgrade to do to the car, especially when you can easily spend a couple of 100,000 credits fitting everything else already. So to build this car is going to cost you a lot at the end of the day. It starts off as a 31,000 credit Peugeot, but it really doesn't end up as that. You're looking at more like a 300,000 or 400,000 credit Peugeot. Overall though, both cars are definitely quick in a straight line, but if you're looking more for a technical cornering hatchback, you might want to give this one a miss. It's not bad, but there are definitely better alternatives out there, some of which we've already covered in this series. But that's it overall for this particular pick, and if you do have the cash to spare and fancy going on GT2 to experience some of the cars that aren't on the game anymore, this is certainly a highlight to check out. But that's it for this pick overall, and I'll see you guys next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.